Use the new.
Is it live?
Oh, yeah, I know.
तो वो जो मेरी इधर तो सीट आनी चाहिए साइड
वो तो उनको जाएगी, वो उनको
नहीं इधर
उनको जा रही है स्लाइड्स आपकी शो में।
Hello students, how are you? I am visible to you.
एक काम कर लेता हूँ, जाफरा से लिंक मंगाऊँ मैं इधर को देख लेता हूँ। मैं मंगवा रहा हूँ।
ये स्टार्ट है।
स्टार्ट है? हेलो, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। हेलो,
हेलो बस अजमल साहब 12 बजे ना दूसरे आते हैं
अच्छा सर मेरा लिंक मुझे भिजवा, मैं चेक करना पड़ेगा।
मैं लेक्चर
सर
तो
और ये
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗਿਲਾਸ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਗਿਲਾਸ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਵੀ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਉਹ ਦੇਖ ਲੈਣਾ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰ
चेक करें आप। ये स्टार्ट है।
Hello students, how are you? I hope you will be fine along with your family members and hope you are following all the instructions to combat with the coronavirus, having the social distancing, sanitizing your hands and mouth and face, and other precautionary measures. Now let's start our today's lecture. Today's lecture topic is Qisas and Diyat Ordinance. This Qisas and Diyat Ordinance, this was imposed in our country as an ordinance in 5 September 1990, and it was changed into an act in 1997. Now the question is, initially it was ordinance, then it became an act. What is the difference between ordinance and act? Ordinance is any order issued by a ruler or the dictator in the absence of the parliament. The absence of parliament means the parliament session is off or because of martial law, the parliament has been suspended. In such case, to cope with any emergency or to meet any situation which is required for the benefit of the country, any order is issued by the ruler. Its duration is up to 90 days. After 90 days, if it is not passed by the parliament, it has to be revised. Maximum 3 revisions are required. Otherwise, it will be cancelled automatically. But strangely, this ordinance continued with the repetitions up to 1997, and in 1997 it was passed by the parliament, then it was converted into an act. So this is the difference between the ordinance and act. Before the application of this ordinance or the act, what was the situation in Pakistan? This was dealt under the English law. In English law, there had been two major groups. First group, the injuries caused by the blunt means. The second group, the injuries caused by the sharp means. So these were the two major groups. Each major group caused either by sharp-edged weapon or the blunt weapon was subdivided into two small groups, simple and grievous. Simple means any injury involving the soft tissue, like the skin, subcutaneous tissues, or the muscles. The grievous group means the involvement of the vital structures like the bone or the viscera of the chest or the abdomen or the skull. So, injury either caused by blunt weapon or by sharp means was subdivided into simple or the grievous. So, blunt means injury further divided into simple and grievous. Similarly, sharp means injuries further subdivided into simple and the grievous. So, these four major groups were applicable before the imposition of this Qisas and Diyat ordinance. The English law system dealing with the simple and grievous injuries was very simple to understand and very easy to apply. But after the imposition of this Qisas and Diyat ordinance, a number of loopholes and complications were seen during the practice by the medical legal officers. Although up till now a number of suggestions has been put up, particularly by the Office of the Surgeon Medical Legal Punjab, to cope with these lacunas or the loopholes, but the act or the ordinance which has been applied, it needs its amendment or changes through the parliament, not through the surgeon medical legal office. So still this is lying in ambiguity, what amendment should be done, what changes to be done, until and unless these amendments are to be passed by the government or by the parliament. What is the basis of imposing this qisas and the ordinance. The rationale or the objective of this ordinance was to bring about all the changes according to the instruction of Islam as laid down in Quran and Sunnah. This is the holy verse before you. وَكَتَبْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ فِيهَا أَنَّ النَّفْسَ بِالنَّفْسِ कि जान के बदले जान वल ऐन बिल ऐन आंख के बदले आंख वल अनफ बिल अनफ नाक के बदले नाक वल ओजना बिल ओजोने और कान के बदले कान व सिन्ना बिस सिन्ने दांत के बदले दांत वल जरूहा किसास और बाकी जख्मों का भी इसी तरह बदला है फमन तसद्दक बिही फहुव कफ़ारातुल्लाह लेकिन जो शख्स बदला माफ कर दे वो इसके लिए कफारा होगा वमन लम यहकुम बिमा अंज़लल्लाहु फउलाइका हुमुज़ ज़ालिमून लेकिन जो खुदा के नाज़िल शुदा अहकामात के मुताबिक हुक्म न दे तो ऐसे लोग बेइंसाफ हैं और वो अल्लाह ताला की बात ना मानने वाले हैं तो बेसिक rationale or the concept of bringing this Qisas and Diyat ordinance was to bring all the laws prevailing in our country according to the injunction of Islam. And this was not the new order of Almighty Allah. This has been written in Torah about 3,000 years ago, which the Almighty Allah required to be continued as a part of Islam. Now I will discuss a few definitions which are present in this ordinance dealing with the punishments. There are three forms of the punishments. First one is the financial punishment. Second one is physical punishment. The definitions which are dealing with the financial punishment are concerned with the compensation in the form of the payments. First one is the arch, ARSH. This is applicable for causing hurt. This is the first difference, that this is the financial compensation or the financial punishment in the form of the compensation for causing hurt. And this is already specified in law. This has to be given by the offender to the victim of the hears. For example, this is applicable if there had been some fracture of tooth. In the law, it is already specified that what is the compensation for causing one tooth, what is the compensation for causing fracture of the two teeth, or for causing fracture or the loss or damage of the whole of the mouth cavity, means more than 20 teeth, what will be the compensation? Already all these compensations are specified in the law. So arsh is the compensation for causing hurt, which is already specified in the law, and it will be paid by the offenders to the victim or his heirs. Next one is the daman. Again, this is the compensation for causing hurt. But how does it differentiate from the arsh? This is to be determined by the court. It is not specified in the law. For example, there is some injury over the face in the form of abrasion or the contusion. Now, this is the power of the court to determine what extent of the compensation will be applied. If this is not determined in the law, as in case of the Arsh. Third one is the Dayat. The section dealing with is the 323. Dayat means to give the compensation. This compensation is for causing death, not for causing hurt. This is the compensation for causing death, and it is specified in the law, paid by the offender to the legal heir of the victim. In the initial days of Islam, this compensation of diyat was paid by the offenders in the form of the camels. The exact number of the camels that is not clear, might be 70 camels, might be 100 camels. After or with passage of time, when the era of Khulafai Rashidin has been passed, there became a dispute about the diyat in the form of camel, whether it should be in the form of white camel, yellow camel, or the brown camels. So it remained in the form of a dispute. When the Qasas and Diyat ordinance was going to be imposed in Pakistan in 90s, there was discussion in the parliament what should be the basis of the diyat and what should be the quantity or amount of the diyat to be paid to the legal heirs. In those days, a dispute arose that in case of death of a female, the female is having a grade of half witness, whether she should be paid the half diyat, and a debate continued between the member of the parliaments. A well-known member tried to solve this debate logically. He said, if the female becomes dead and half diyat is determined, that half diyat will be paid to the legal to her legal heirs, means the legal heir is husband, and husband is already having some earning capacity. On the other hand, in case of death of the husband or the male person, full diyat will be applicable, and full diyat will be paid to the female partner who is a wife. It means the wife, being a female, having no earning resources, she should be receiving the full diyat. And in case of death of the wife, the husband will be receiving the half diyat. But this debate could not get any result, and finally, this was decided that the full diyat will be paid to either party, whether she is a female or a male. Now, what was the shape of the earth? For this purpose, the silver was made as a base. And what is the quantity of the silver which is to be paid as a diyat? And that is the amount of 30,630 grams of the silver, means 30.630 kg of the silver. So the basis of determination of the amount of diyat is the silver, and quantity of silver is 30,630 grams of the silver. It means 30 kg of a silver, which is applied to adult person. If the average weight of the adult person is 60 kg, it means for each kg, the amount of half kg of silver will be applicable. But this is not the rule, because the quantity of silver is not measured according to the weight of the person. This is the just elaboration or the explanation to keep in the memory the weight of the person. If it is in kgs, for each kg body weight, half kg of silver will be paid as a diyat. But this is not the part of the law. The court shall fix the value of the diyats. This is again another point. Keeping in view the financial status of the offender or the legal heir of the victim. Either it remains fixed throughout the year or it is variable. It is variable. At the beginning of each financial year, means on 1st July of every fiscal year, this will be fixed by the federal government, not by the provincial government, because the rate of the value of silver is variable throughout the year. So on the every 1st July of every fiscal year, this will be fixed and it will remain permanent throughout that fiscal year. So diyat is the compensation for causing death, and this will be paid by the offender to the legal heirs, and it will be fixed by the federal government, keeping in view the financial status of either the offender or the victim. And it is having a correspondence with the value of the silver, and the value of silver is 30,630 grams, and it is fixed on the 1st July of each fiscal year by the federal government, not by the provincial government. So these are the definitions of the terms arsh, daman, and diyat. And this is the financial punishment in the form of compensations being paid by the offender to the victim or the legal heirs of the victim. Next, financial next punishment is the physical punishment. First was the financial punishment, and this second group is the physical punishment. This is qisas, applicable for causing hurt and applicable for causing death. Qisas means tit for tat, adle ka badla. This is the punishment by causing the similar hurt at the same part of the body of the convict as he has caused to the victim. Means if there had been evaluation, sorry, if there had been evisceration of one eyeball, the eyeball will be eviscerated from the offender because the eyeball has been lost from the victim by the offender. So this is the tit for tat कि आंख के बदले आंख, कान के बदले कान, नाक के बदले नाक और दांत के बदले नाक. And this physical punishment is applicable for causing hurt. But if the death has been occurred by the offenders, then the death of the offender will be applicable as qisas. But this death should be a form of qatl amd, not other qatls. Qatl amd means where the intentional death has been caused with full knowledge, with full intention. That is the qatl amd, means to causing death of another person with full intention and with full knowledge that what he is doing and with whom what he is doing. This is said to be qatl amd. Although there are four types of the qatl, in addition to qatl amd, there is qatl khata, qatl bil sabab, qatl shabi amd. For these three types, this qasas is not applicable. This is applicable on the for causing qatl amd. So physical punishment in the form of qisas is applicable for causing hurt and for causing death. If it is applicable for causing hurt, the similar hurt will be caused over the body of the hurt as he has caused over the body of the victim. And in case of qisas for causing death, and that death is in the form of qatl amd, then this physical punishment of causing death of the offender will be applicable. Third form of physical punishment, that is ta'zir. Other than arsh, daman, and diyat, which are the financial compensations, and qisas, which is the physical punishment. The third form of physical punishment is ta'zir, means imprisonment. So these were the punishment which are concerned with the medical students having their knowledge as physical punishments, as financial punishment. Their definition should be in the mind of the medical students. Now we come to the different sections which are dealing with various types of the hurt. According to English law, the hurt under the section 319 of Pakistan Penal Code. This is the causing of bodily pain, disease, or infirmity to a person by the offender. This is the definition of hurt under the English law, section 319 Pakistan Penal Code. Similar definition is provided in the Qisas and Diyat Ordinance under the section 332. Now, what is the difference between the hurt of the English law and the hurt of Qisas and Diyat Ordinance? It is including the pain, the harm, disease, or the infirmity, or injury to a person, or impairment or disabling of any organ or any part of the body, or dismembering of any organ of the body or any part of any limb without causing death. Now, what is the difference between the definition of hurt in the English law? That is including only the pain, disease, and infirmity. But the definition of hurt under the Qisas and Diyat ordinance under the section 332, it's including pain, harm, disease, infirmity, plus injury to a person, plus impairment or disabling, plus dismembering any organ, any body limb. But the condition is that the person should remain alive. No death of the person should occur. Another definition in the English law is prevailing, which you have been taught during the definition of the traumatology, that is the injury. Under the section 44 of Pakistan Penal Code of English law, injury is any harm caused to a person in his body, in his mind, in his reputation, in his property. So, injury includes the harms to a person in four areas. What are these? These areas are body, his mind, his reputation, and his property. This definition of hurt under the section 332 of Qisas and Diyat ordinance is so comprehensive that it is also including the parts of the definition of injury to a person in the form of reputation, property, body, and mind. So, hurt under the section 319 of English law and the hurt definition of Qisas and Diyat ordinance under the section 332 is so comprehensive that it is including all the parts which has been mentioned in the English law. What are the kinds of the hurt? These include five groups. First one is itlaf-e-udv. Ud means organ. It means the loss of any organ or any limb. Itlaf means loss. So loss of any organ, and which is named in the Qisas and Diyat ordinance, that is itlaf-e-udv. Second is itlaf-e-salahiyat-e-udv. Itlaf means loss. Salahiyat means working capacity, functioning capacity of udv of an organ. It means the loss of working capacity of any organ or the limb. Third one is shaja. What is shaja? It will be explained in the coming time. Fourth one is jur. Again, this is the Arabic terminology, and what is it? It will be explained in the coming time. And fifth, this is a group of a number of herds. So there are five major groups: Itlafi Ud, Itlaf Salahiyat Ud, Shaja, Jur, and all other kinds of the herds which are applicable in different situations. What is Itlaf Ud? Here you can see a body having a number of injuries over different parts of the body. You can see there is loss of left lower leg and foot, and loss of left hand with the lower part of the wrist joint. The injuries present over the body, these are not including itlaf udh, except the loss of left foot and loss of left hand. It means the loss of any organ, any part of the limb is said to be itlaf udh. In the image, you can see there is amputation or dismemberment of the left index finger. The loss of left index finger at the interphalangeal joint is said to be itlaf ud. So, loss of any organ, any part of the limb, or dismemberment, or amputation, or severement of any organ of the body of another person is said to be itlaf ud. What is punishment in the Qisas and Diyat ordinance? As I had told you in the beginning of the lecture, this is the tit for tat. Here, Qisas will be applicable, and dismemberment of the left index finger of the offender will be punished, as he has caused the amputation or the severement or the dismembering of the left index finger of the victim. If the qisas is not applicable, arsh means the financial compensation, and this is fixed already in the law that will be applicable, and tazir is the third punishment up to 10 years. As a medical students, you are not much related with the punishments. This is the domain of the courts, not the domain of the medical students or the medical doctors, but the domain of the medical doctor is to provide the basis to impose punishment by the court. Next group is Itlafi Salahiyat Ul. Here you can see the person is having two eyeballs. Left eyeball is intact. Right eyeball is although present, but it is not showing any working capacity or functioning power. It means this person has lost his working capacity of right eye. This is the loss of the working capacity or the functioning power of the one organ. This is said to be itlafi salahiyat ud. Here again, you can see there is amputation of the nose up to the nasal bridge. Although the female victim is able to having the sensation of smell, she can breathe to the nasal opening, but this severement of the nasal part, nasal ali, has led to cause disfigurement of the face. This disfigurement also comes in the category of the itlaf salahiyat ud. Although the working or the functioning capacity of the nose is intact, but it has caused disfigurement of the face. Another, this female is having the intact face, except some pathology over the left cheek, and this pathology is not natural one. This is the unnatural one. It has been caused by causing some damage either by the blunt weapons or by some acid material by throwing or through vitriolage. Although the working capacity of each part of the face, like the eyes, nose, lips, these are intact, but it has caused disfigurement over the face. Again, this will come under the category of itlafi salahiyati ud. So itlafi salahiyati ud, this is the destruction or impairment of the working capacity or the functioning capacity, but this impairment should be permanent. Sorry. The second form of this itlaf salahiyati ud section deals with the permanent disfigurement of the face. So itlaf salahiyati ud includes not only the loss of the working capacity or the functioning power of the organ or the limb, but it also includes the permanent disfigurement of a person, permanent disfigurement of the face of the person. This becomes particularly more important or more grievous if the face value of the person, like a TV anchor or model or any actor or the actress, if there had been some disfigurement over his or her face, which is the source of his earning, that will come under the category of itlafi salahiyati ud. What is the punishment? Again, there will be application of qisas. The same hurt will be caused over the same area of the offender as he has caused over the any part of the victim. And second is the urge, where the financial compensation, it has been fixed in the law that will be payable to the victim or tazir up to 10 years. Here you can see there is severement of the pinna of this person on right side. This case was brought to the hospital where cosmetic surgery was attempted, and this was the result. Now, this question, I will keep it pending for your comments whether it should come under the category of Itlaf Salahiyat Oud or some any other section of the Qisas and Diyat ordinance for its compensation or the punishment will be applicable. This will be asked or this will be expected from you at the end of the lecture. Third group is Shaja. Shaja means any injury, whether this is in the form of a lacerated wound as you are looking at the image, or abrasions or contusion present over the face and head only. It is confined only to the area of face and head. It does not include the area of neck, and it does not include the area of chest, abdomen, trunk, upper limbs, or the lower limbs. It means this is the injury only and only limited to face and head, not neck, not any other part of the body. And it should not amount to the level of itlaf-e-ud or the itlaf-e-salahiyat-e-ud. This injury will be called shaja. Any harm, any hurt present over the face and head, excluding neck and any other part of the body, excluding itlaf-e-ud, excluding itlaf-e-salahiyat-e-ud, and not causing death is said to be shaja. Once again, any injury, whether abrasion, whether contusion, whether laceration, whether incise wound, but it should be present only and only over the face and head, not present over the neck, not present over any part of the body, not amounting to itlaf-e-ud, not amounting to itlaf-e-salahiyat-e-ud, and not causing death is said to be shaja. Now the shaja, this is the major group of the injuries present over the face and head, but it has been further subdivided into small six groups according to the depth of the injury. And this depth starts from the skin, going to muscles, approaching the bone, approaching the dura mater or other membranes, and finally involving the brain. According to the depth of the injury, these has been subdivided into different groups, subgroups, and each subgroup is given a different name. First one is Shadda Khafifa. Second one is Shadda Mudiha. Third one is Shadda Hashima. Fourth one is Shadda Munakila. Fifth one, Shadda Amma. and finally Shajjai Damiga. At this stage, I will like to clear that the medical legal officer is concerned only to write down the nomenclature, like the Shajja Kafifa, Mudiha, Hashma, Munakala, Amma, and Damiga. The section which you are looking written as a red form, this is not the domain of the medical officer. So you are concerned only with the nomenclature of the injuries, not the sections. The application of section is the domain of the legal officer or the court, and there is clear-cut order of the High Court that no doctor will write down these sections, he will only write the nomenclature of the injuries. Now, the detail of these subgroups. Here you can see this is the black discoloration present around the eyes over the cheeks. This is continuum. If you look at the nasal bridge, a very small abrasion is also visible. Here you can see over the right side of the face, abrasion is present. Here you can see an incised wound present over the right eyebrow. So any injury, whether present in the form of abrasions, present in the form of contusion, present in the form of lacerated wound, present in the form of incised wound over the face or head, not involving the underlying bone, will be said to be shajja khafifa. Khafif means minor. So minor injury over the face and head in the form of abrasions, contusions, laceration, or incised wound without involving the underlying bone will be called shajja khafifa. It should not be present over the neck or any other part of the body, and it should not be causing itlaf-e-ud or itlaf-e-salahiyat-e-ud, and this injury should not be causing death, then it will be called shajja khafifa. Sorry. Now, what is the punishment? There will be no application of qisas, only the application of daman. And daman is the financial compensation, and it is not fixed already in the law. It will be determined by the court up to which extent the financial compensation will be paid to the victim or his heirs by the offender, or imprisonment which may extend up to 2 years as tazir. So this is Shajja Khafifa. Next group is Shajja Mudiha. Now we are proceeding depth-wise: skin, subcutaneous tissue, and muscles that were dealing with the Shajja Khafifa. Now, any injury, whether this is an incised wound or the lacerated wound, means it should be an open wound present over the face or head, and there is exposure of the underlying bone, whether of the skull bone or the any bone of the face. If there is exposure of the bone should be visible to the examiner, then it will be called as shajamudiha. The visibility of bone is sufficient. There should be no fractures of that bone. Then it will be called shajamudiha. It means shajamudiha is any open wound, whether incised wound or lacerated wound, in which bone has become exposed and very easily visible to the examiner without causing fracture. That will be caused shaja mudiha. What is the punishment? Giving the importance to the injury over the face and head, qisas is applicable. And if qisas is not being executed, arsh means this has already been fixed in the law, and that is the 5% of the diyat. Diyat means 30,630 grams, and as a arsh for Shajja Mudiha, that will be 5%, or imprisonment up to 5 years, that is the tazir. So any open wound that is present over the face, present over the head, where the bone has become exposed without causing fracture, is said to be Shajja Madiha. And at this point, at this stage, I would like to elaborate the exposure of the bone, visibility of the bone of the medical to the medical examiner. This is the subjective finding. This depends upon the honesty of the medical examiners. If it is not visible to the examiner, and even then he is writing that it is visible, that depends upon the conscience of the doctor, and this may lead to grievous sufferings to the offender if it is not true. Again, lacerated wound. Here, the wound is reaching up to the frontal bone, and on examination, this frontal bone should be visible to the examiner, and there should be no fracture of the underlying bone. Then it will be called shaja mudiha. Here, it is easily visible to the examiner, shaja mudiha. Third subgroup is shaja hashima. Here, you can see that the open wound is present over the face and head. Bone is visible, bone is fractured, but any fractured part is not displaced. Then it will be called shaja hashima. So any injury over the face or head that is in the form of open wound, where the underlying bone is visible, number one. Number two, it is fractured. Number three, the fracture ends are not displaced. This is said to be Shajja Hashim. What is the punishment? No thoughts, but urge means the financial compensation, that is 10% of the total diyat that will be applicable to be paid to the victim by the offender, or imprisonment up to 10 years. You can note that Shajja Khafifa, there is no urge for Shajja Mudiha, there is Qisas and urge of 5%. And here for Hashima, the gravity has been increased because of the fracture. So from 5%, it has been enhanced to 10% of the total diyat. So Shajja Hashima is open wound present over the face or head. Number one. Number two, bone is visible. Number three, bone is fractured. And number four, the condition is that the fracture ends has not been displaced. Fourth subgroup is Shadda Munakila. Here you can see open wound over the head is present. Bone is easily visible. Bone is fractured. And fourth element is displacement of the fracture ends. Munakla means to shift, to transfer from one place to other place, to be displaced. Nakal Mukani. So Shajja Munakila, this includes the open wound over the face or head, visibility or the exposure of the underlying bone. Fracture of the bone is visible and the fracture ends are displaced, then this will amount to Shajja Munakila. Again, for punishment, no qisas, but urge. From 10%, it has been enhanced to 15%. For Modiha, 5%. For Hashima, 10%. For Munakla, 15%. Or Tazir, up to 10 years. So, subgroup Shajja Munakila. This is the open wound present over the face and head with exposure of the bone, with fracture, with displacement of the fracture ends. This will include or this will be graded as Shajja Munakila. Now we are going depth-wise. Skin, subcutaneous tissue, muscle, bones. Now we are reaching the membranes. Any injury which is in the form of an open wound, bone is exposed or visible, bone is fractured, fracture ends are displaced. What will be the result? The dura mater or the meninges will be visible to the examiner. This injury will be said to be fracture amma. So any open wound in which the skull bones are exposed, the skull bones has been fractured, this fractured ends has been displaced, and the membranes of dura mater or the underlying membranes are visible to the examiner, this will be said to be Shajja Amma, and the punishment will be the earth which has been raised up to 30%. 5%, 10%, 15%, and here it has been enhanced to 30% of the total diya or tazhir up to 10 years. Sixth subgroup, we are approaching into the depth. After the meninges, what comes? That is brain. So any open wound present over the face or head in which there is bone is exposed, bone is visible, bone is fractured, fracture ends has been displaced, the meninges has been ruptured, and brain surface or matter is visible or damaged, it is said to be shaja damiga. And this is the most severe injury which may come across a person during the any injury, during any accident, or during any unnatural application of the force. What are the punishments? This is having the greatest severity. So this will be raised up to 50% of the diyat, starting from Mudiya 5%, for Hashima 10%, for Munakla 15%, for meninges or Amma 30%. Here, the 50% of the total diyat will have to be paid by the offender to the victim or his legal heirs. So this was about the injuries over the face and the head. The Tazir, that is up to 14 years. Any injury over the face or head, excluding neck, excluding any part of the body, excluding itlaf-e-ud, excluding itlaf-e-slahiyat-e-ud, without causing death is said to be shaja. And this has been subgrouped according to the depth of the tissues. If only the skin, muscles has been involved without causing or involving the underlying bone in the form of abrasion, contusion, and laceration, that will be called shaja khafifa. If the underlying bone is involved only up to the level of just exposure, that will be shaja madiha. If that bone after its exposure has become fractured but not displaced, that will be said to be shaja hashima. If the affected bone has been fractured and after fracture, the fracture ends has been displaced or some space has been created, that will be said to be shaja munakila. And if the meninges has been involved after the fracture of the underlying bone and displacement of the fracture ends, that will be said to be shaja amma. And if the brain matter becomes involved after the exposure of the bone, fracture of the bone, displacement of the fracture ends, and rupture of the membranes, that will be said to be shaja dami. Sorry, I think these are the new terminologies, and you will be finding difficulty, but this is the basic duty of the medical legal officer to declare all the injuries coming to him during his professional duty. So more emphasis is given over these injuries. Just like a doctor who is supposed sorry, to make a diagnosis on the basis of different signs and symptoms, So this is the diagnosis which has to be made by the medical legal officer, and the punishment which is ordered by the court, that lies only and only the proper diagnosis by the medical legal officer. So this will be my advice to you, to have the great emphasis to understand the nature of these injuries. Now come to the next area of the body which is affected, excluding face and head. We have excluded, or we have examined, or we have studied face and head. The remaining area includes the neck, the front of chest and abdomen, or back of chest and abdomen, and the upper limbs or the lower limbs. These are the remaining areas. So any hurt which is present over the body, excluding face and head, and including neck, torso, upper limb, and lower limb, that is said to be jur. This may be present either in the form of any abrasion, as you are looking at this image, or may be present in the form of a lacerated wound, or may be present in the form of stab wound. But the condition is that it should include only the neck, torso, upper limb, or the lower limb, and not it should include the face and the head. This hurt is said to be pure. So any hurt over the body other than face and head, and producing any wound which may leave a temporary or permanent scarring, or permanent or temporary wound, is said to be jur. It is of two types, jur jaifa and jur ghair jaifa. What is information you are receiving from this image? There is an open wound over the front of the left forearm and over the front of the cubital fossa, but another wound is present over the left side of the abdomen, through which you can see the mesentery, omentum, and the intestine are coming out. Although both are open wound, both has been caused by a sharp-edged weapon, but the nature of both injuries are different. The open wound present over the front of the left upper limb, there is no underlying cavity, but in case of abdomen, you can see there is coming out of the omentum and mesentery and intestine, which is coming out from the peritoneal cavity. So any hurt which is extended to the cavity of the chest or abdomen, that will be called as jur jaifa. Jaifa means cavity. Sorry. So any wound, any hurt which is extending, which is approaching, which is having an access into the interior of the cavity of the chest and the abdomen, that will be called jur jaifa. And The wound which is present over the front of the left upper limb where there is no underlying cavity, this will not be called as Jurjaifa. Only the hurt which is approaching, which is extending into the cavity of the chest or the abdomen, that will be called Jurjaifa. And the punishment is urge, 30% of the total diyat or the tazir up to the 10 years. Here again, you can see there is entry of knife into the front of the chest, means the hurt is approaching the cavity of the chest. Again, this is an example of Jur Jaifa. Second group is the Jur Ghair Jaifa, means it is not including the cavity, which is not involving the cavity of the body. Here, the cavities has become excluded, but any injury, any hurt which is present over the body, over the neck, except the face and head, that will be called as Jur Ghair Jaifa. Jur is any hurt present over the body, other face and head. If it is extending into the cavity of the chest and the abdomen, that will be termed as Jur Jaifa. If it is not involving the cavity of the chest and the abdomen, this will be termed as the Jur Ghair Jaifa. Like Shaja, it has been further subclassified according to the depth of the tissue. First one is Ghair Jaifa Damya, then Ghair Jaifa Badiya, then Ghair Jaifa Mutalahima, then Ghair Jaifa Mudiha, then Ghair Jaifa Hashima, then Ghair Jaifa Munakila. Like the subgroups of Shajja, it also includes 6 subgroups, but there is some difference. Here, this is an abrasion present over the upper limb or lower limb, which has been caused by friction by some blunt weapon. Here you can see the skin has become ruptured and there is small oozing of the blood, but there is no involvement of the bone. So any injury which has been caused by the blunt means leading to rupture of the skin or superficial cuts present over the neck, present over the upper limb, present over the front of chest abdomen, back of chest abdomen, or lower limb is said to be Gair Jaifa Dami. Punishment, daman, tazir, or imprisonment. In case of hurt over the face and head, if this abrasion is present, that would be called Shajja Khafifa, but here it is being called Gair Jaifa Damya. Any hurt in the form of abrasion, contusion, laceration, incised wound over the face and head has been grouped under the category of Shajja Khafifa, but for upper limb, lower limb, or the chest and abdomen, the subgroups have become different. This is an incised wound present over the front of the neck. This is not involving the underlying bone or trachea. So any injury, any hurt which has been caused by the sharp-edged weapon and it has not involved the underlying bone, this is just causing the cutting of the skin and the underlying muscles without exposure of the bone that will be said to be Gair Jaifa Padia. If this incised wound has been present over the face and head, this would be termed as Shajja Khafifa. But here, in case of any part of the body other than face and head, if it has been caused by the sharp-edged weapon and it has not involved the underlying bone, this would be termed as Gair Jaifa Padya, and punishments are daman and tazir as imprisonment up to 3 years. Third, again, this is an incised wound present over the web of the hand. There is no exposure of the underlying bone. Again, this will be termed as Gair Jaifa Padia. Next group, that is the Gair Jaifa Mutalahima. Mutalahima means crushing of the soft tissue. This is the hurt which is caused by the application of the blunt means, leading to crushing or damage of the soft tissue of the skin, subcutaneous tissue, and the underlying muscles without exposure of the bone. Again, if this injury had been present over the face and head, it has to be termed as Shajja Khafifa, but here this is present over the body part other than face and head. It has been caused by the blunt means weapons. There is crushing or damage to the skin and underlying muscles, but the bone is not exposed. So this would be termed as Gair Jaifa Mutalahima. The punishment, daman and tazir up to 3 years. Fourth one, again, here you can see the open wound caused by the blunt weapon present over the front of the forearm, but there is no exposure of the bone, underlying bone. So this would be termed as Gair Jaifa Lahima. So any injury present over the any body part other than face and head, if it remains confined to the soft tissue without exposure of the bone, depending upon whether it is caused by blunt weapon or sharp weapons, if it has been in the form of abrasion, that would be called just as Gair Jaifa Damya. If it has been caused by blunt means, that would be called Gair Jaifa Padya. If it has been called, if it has been caused by sharp means, that would be called as Padya. And if it has been caused by blunt means, that would be called as Mutalahima. Now, fourth group, that is Gair Jaifa Mudiha. Here, This is the open wound, whether incised wound or the lacerated wound. But it should be present over the body part other than face and head. And here you can see the bone is visible, but the condition is that the bone is not fractured. So any open wound present over any body part other than face and head, whether it is incised wound, whether it is lacerated wound. If the bone is visible to the examiner without showing any fracture, that would be called as Gair Jaifa Modiha. In case of Shaja, again, this section was applicable if the underlying bone of the skull or face is visible. That was caused Shajja Mudiha, but here it is present over the body part other than face and head, so it is said to be Gair Jaifa Mudiha. Here in the image, you can see the bone is visible of the right radius or the ulna. So this is Gair Jaifa Mudiha. Punishments are Daman and Tazir. Here you compare with the severity of the punishments for Shaja. There had been application of the ursh or qisas, but here only the daman is applicable, means it depends upon the jurisdiction of the court, where the court can determine what punishment or what financial compensation is going to be paid by the offender to the victim. Again, just like Shajjah Hashima. In Shajjah Hashima, what happened? Bone had been exposed. Bone has been fractured, but there had been no displacement. Similarly, here, any open wound, lacerated wound or incised wound, but present over the body part other than face and head, without any displacement of the fractured end, is said to be Gair Jaifa Hashima. So any open wound, lacerated or incised wound, present over the body part other than face and head, if it is exposed, if it is visible to the examiner, but it is fractured, but the fractured ends have not been displaced, that will be labeled as Verjafa Hashima. What are the punishments? Again, Daman. It depends upon the jurisdiction of the court, what financial compensation is going to be paid by the offender. It is not fixed, not in the present in the form of a diyat. So this is the difference between the severity of the injuries present over the face and head and present over the body part other than face and head. Here, if you see the distal phalanx of the middle finger, you see the fracture, but there is no displacement of the fractured ends. This is the fractured ends, which are not displaced, but the underlying bone is fractured. So this would be labeled as Gair Jaifa Hashima. Now we have approached the depth starting from the skin, subcutaneous tissue, muscles, and the bones. Here, you can see in the image. The open wound is present over the lower limb. The bone is exposed, bone is fractured, and the fractured end is displaced. It means there has been shifting or displacement of the fractured ends, so this would be labeled as Verdefa monocular. So any open wound over any part of the body other than face and head, if there is exposure of the bone, if there is fracture of the bone, if there is displacement of the fracture ends of the bones, it would be labeled as Gerd-Jaffer monocular. Again, open wound, exposure of the bone, fracture of the exposed part, and displacement of the fractured ends. This would be called as Gerd-Jaffer monocular, and this is visible on the X-ray. Name the punishments, Daman and Tazir. Again, the domain of the court, what financial compensation is to be determined by that court. So these were the subgroups involving any body part other than face and head, starting from skin rupture in the form of abrasion, that would be where Jaifa Dame. If the skin plus the underlying subcutaneous tissue or muscles have been cut by the sharp-edged weapons, that would be called as Ghair Jaifa Badia. If the skin, muscles, and other soft tissue without involving the underlying bone has become damaged, has become crushed by the blunt means, that would be labeled as Ghair Jaifa Mutalahima. If there has been exposure of the underlying bone of any other part of the body, other face or head, either caused by sharp-edged weapon, caused by blunt weapon, the bone is exposed, but there is no fracture. That would be labeled as Ghair Jaifa Mudiha. If there is open wound, bone has been exposed, bone has been fractured, but there is no displacement of the fractured end, that would be said to be as Ghair Jaifa Hashim. Now, this next subgroup, according to the depth, according to the severity of the injury, open wound, exposure of the bone, fracture of the bone, displacement, but there is no displacement, that would be said to be Ghair Jaifa Hashima. And if the open wound has caused the exposure of the bone, fracture of the bone, displacement of the fracture ends, that would be said to be Ghair Jaifa monocular. So this is the nomenclature which is dealing with different areas of the body. If it is dealing with face and head, that will come under Shaja. If it is dealing with neck and other body part other than face of head, that would be covered under Jur. If it is involving the cavity of the chest and abdomen, that would be said to be Jur Jaifa. If it is not involving the cavity of the chest and the abdomen, but involving the any other part of the body other than face and head, that would be said to be Gair Jaifa, Jur Gair Jaifa. Here Again, you can see the displacement of the fractured ends where Jaffa Monocula. Another very important section, that is 337L, 2 subsection L1 or L2. Although this classification or the nomenclature has tried its best to describe all the injuries present over the face or head, even then, at the time of examination, if the medical legal examiner finds difficulty to set any injury according to the described pattern, there comes the role of section 337L1 or L2, and this is the sole section which is having no nomenclature, but according to the law, we have to write down only the name of the section. Any injury which has not been described in the previous sections, previous subsections of Shajja or Jur, and it is meeting one of the following criteria. Number one, if it endangers life because of head injury, because of injury to chest and abdomen, in involving any vital organ like the heart or liver, due to which there is danger to life. This is the first criteria. Or any injury due to which the injured person remains in severe bodily pain for 20 days or more, or any injury due to which injured person is unable to follow his normal pursuits like urination, defecation, or ingestion intake of food for 20 days or more, or any blunt trauma to the abdomen, which is not exposed, which is not open, but the underlying structures of the abdomen of like liver, spleen, and kidney has been damaged or crushed, or any blunt trauma without causing open wound, but there is underlying fracture of the ribs, there is laceration of the heart, laceration of the lungs, there is hemothorax, there is pneumothorax, hemopneumothorax. If all these conditions are being met, being fulfilled, the section 337L1 is applicable. You might have noted during the description of the injuries over the face and head as Shajja and Jur Jaifa, Jur Jaifa, no such injury has been mentioned. So, when during the examination of the injured person, when the medical legal officer examines and finds difficulty to label the injuries, and if he finds these criteria where there is danger to life, there is the person is in severe bodily pain for 20 days or more, or if the person is unable to follow the normal pursuits of life, or if there had been blunt trauma without causing any open wound over the abdomen, but there is damage, severe damage to underlying structures of the abdomen like the liver, spleen, and kidneys, or blunt trauma without causing open wound over the chest, causing fracture of the ribs, or laceration of the heart, laceration of the lungs, leading to hemothorax, pneumothorax. All these injuries or the condition will fulfill to label such condition as 337L1. The subcomponent of 337L is L2. You might have noted the bruise over the face comes under the section Shajja Khafifa, but there is no mentioning of any bruise over the upper limb, over the lower limb, over the front of chest abdomen, over the back of chest abdomen. So any bruise which is present over these areas of the body other than face and head will be covered under the section 337L2. Here in the image you can see there is dislocation of the elbow joint, might be knee joint. We have not studied any section which is dealing with the injuries over the face or head over the body. So this section also deals with the injuries which has not been covered in the previous sections, and this will come under the section 337L2, means any dislocation might have been occurred during the application of the force during the wrestling. If there has been dislocation of any joint and it has not been covered in the previous sections, it will be covered under the section 337L2. Burns, it has not been covered in the previous sections of Sajja, Jur, Jur Jaifa, Jur Gair Jaifa. Again, the burns will be covered under the section 337L2. These are the areas of burns and scars. If there had been close fracture of the limbs or head, which has not been covered under the section of Shajja or Jur Gair Jaifa, this will also be covered under the section 337L2. Here you can see there is trauma over the right forearm. There is no open wound. There is no exposure of the bone. There is no exposure of the bone, but there is fracture of the bone. So to write down this injury as to be Gair Jaifa Hashima, the condition is exposure of the bone. But here, no exposure of the bone. So this will be covered under the section 337L2. I think this is sufficient for today's lecture. If any question, any query, any comment, please let me know. I will try to elaborate. I will try to explain it because this is very important thing. You have covered the injuries under the section traumatology. But as a medical legal examiner, when you are posted in some hospital, particularly in the peripheral area where no guidance is available, such type of the mistakes, blunders, or errors are expected to be made, and what would be the result if the erroneous reports are forwarded to courts? So I would advise you to please emphasize at this stage to understand the nature of the injuries. Okay, thank you. but I am waiting for your comments. One comment is that the ordinance is only related to martial law, not martial law. Even in the democratic era, it can be applicable whenever the session of the parliament is off. One comment or question is query is injury to ears, nose, or the eye would be in itlafi udf. Yes, it can be itlafi udf if there had been permanent loss of eye or the nose. Any injury over the nose, over the eyelid, this does not amount to itlafi udf. The loss of that organ of eye or nose is sufficient to label it as itlafi ud. Otherwise, it would be shaja khafifa. Yes, if the working capacity of organ of either face or head or any part of the body is lost, then it would be called as itlafi salahiyati ud. Otherwise, it will be dealt according to the situation. I think I have tried my best to convey you this difficult topic to make it easy and palatable. I don't expect from you on the very first day that you might have understood or taken it up very clearly, because even an experienced teacher or the person or the medical legal officer is still in a state of confusion because of these terminologies and because of their application. But as a student, you would be expected to make the rata of these terminologies. I think This is sufficient, and I would like to have permission to leave the lecture room, and I would like to say thank you. Thank you to all of you.